I love losing myself in the textures and different techniques of mixed media art journaling. And without realizing it or even trying, it slows me down and clears my head. Well, and it also gives me a space to express myself. Using some of my favorite tools and techniques, I wanted to see how long it would take for me to create a few background pages for art journaling with just splashes of color, and at the same time show you some of the tools and techniques that I use. Well, because I want you to see that if you have an interest in possibly exploring art journaling, it doesn't have to take that long or be that intimidating. Now, of course, you can go down the rabbit hole of all the tools and supplies that you can use for art journaling. I did, I do, I probably always will. But that's how enjoyable it is for me. So whether you want to keep art journaling simple or explore the $2 billion industry-wide tools for mixed media art journaling. I've lost my train of thought. It's so easy to do. Anyway, let's go play. So Tropical Storm Ophelia came through here last week, so I had some time to create these individual background pages, which will eventually become a rainbow-themed art journal. And like I said, I wanted to see how much time it would take using a simple technique called the kiss, along with stencils, to make breaking the white page effortless. Okay, so I've also been really dying to use the stencils from the expo. Okay, so these are the supplies I used. I used a mixed media paper rated at 160 GSM. That's just a fancy way of saying it's heavier than paper, but not quite as heavy as a cardstock. I also used Distress Oxide stamp pads and a silicone mat. Water in a spray bottle, the stencils, of course, and this wonderful stuff called texture paste that I mixed in some pigment powders to create some fun colors. Yeah. All right. So with all this rain, I thought of the rainbow after a rainstorm, and I want to create art journaling space to play with all that ephemera we got from the Make and Take extravaganza. So I want to create simple backgrounds. Like, I really don't want to take a lot of time. It's one of these days where I'm in the mood to just let it go. Let's just have some fun, not overthink it. The technique behind the kiss is simple. You're laying down color, in this case with Distress Oxides, which are both a pigment and a dye. The color is spread on the silicone mat and then sprayed with some water. These Distress Oxides are water reactive, so there are many fun ways to use these. This is just one way. This is the first time I'm doing this on top of this particular silicone mat, and I'm really enjoying the way the water is beating up. This can potentially make for interesting patterns. The best thing about this is to not overthink it. You're not trying to create any particular image, you just want to get some color on the paper. And if little streaks like that happen, make it part of the artwork. These are background papers, so they're going to disappear behind any foreground work that we do. Now that you've kissed the paper to the mat,
we can do the reveal and see what has appeared. Woohoo! Look at that. It looks like the paper itself had a crease in it from trying to get a pen to write, which created that spiral, which is really cool. So I did this technique for all the colors and all the pages. When I got to the yellow, I realized I could experiment some more. So I tried playing with my stencils and the kiss technique to see what would happen. I love that, this process gives you a lot of room for experimentation. You can't get anything wrong, and there's nothing to judge. So have at it. Let's have some fun. All right, so this is just a dry towel, and I'm blotting the extra ink. Huh. Yeah, it's not that bad. It's very subtle, right? I found that taking a dry towel and rubbing it over the top afterwards left a very nice effect of light and dark with that stencil pattern. And sometimes I played with 2 different shades of color, like here with the green. It really doesn't matter whether you make little designs with the stamp pad. Once you spray it with the water, it really doesn't matter. Oh, that silicone mat makes it so fun. Getting over that fear of breaking a white page is easy when you use this technique. I mean, it becomes very playful. It's less intimidating, especially if you don't consider yourself an artist. I even found myself at sometimes making sound effects. You make better art when you make sound effects, right? I also found that I really liked the look of the small droplets that were created without smearing the color.
I don't think we give ourselves enough time to finger paint, to get messy. Grown up, things have to be more structured. Love that. Look at that. Oh.
By the time I got to purple, I was getting more creative and played with another stencil. I applied the stamp ink directly to the stencil and then sprayed it with water. Well, let's see what happens. That's the dry towel again, just so I can impress the paper on that stencil. I think you're going to really enjoy how this turned out. Isn't that so cool? And I know it looks like I'm trying to use a technique here by putting the stencil down and blotting it with the towel. But I just figured really I wanted to clean the stencil off, so I might as well do it on top of the paper and see what happens. This is an old acrylic airbrush paint that I have.
Just do what we've been doing. Let's just play.
And it's very fluid. I would challenge you not to be afraid of black.
That makes an incredible splatter effect. Look, put the paper here. at that splatter effect. That's kind of cool.
I love my reaction.
Ooh, Rorschach how do you say Rorschach? Alright, gonna go clean up a little. So within a matter of like 20 minutes, I have the makings of an art journal. These are still, the last one, especially that purple one, I saturated. Still on the damp side. I still want to work more in the background. I'm thinking more texture, so I grabbed my Cloud Whip. You can use any kind of texture paste. This Cloud Whip is very potent. Whew. It's red. Let's see what happens when we take a little bit of Magicals with the cloud paste. My God, I just realized that's going to be a lot. Look, it clashes. It clashes with the red we got down there. How fun is that, though? Wow.
Texture paste, or even thick gesso, is such a wonderful medium to use with stencils. It adds such dimension to the art journals.
Oh, I love how it clashes.
And when you add pigment powders, you can play with all sorts of colors, even if they do clash. The reveal is always the best part, right? I think that's so cool. This is where I find art journaling to be so therapeutic. I've blissfully lost myself in the process. I noticed how the pigment powder could be two-tone if not mixed completely.
Oh, look. Look at that. Betcha I could damp my finger. Just a little bit.
I don't care if my finger looks like I've been eating pistachios. I'm all in. I mean, look at how much time I'm spending. This is still just the red page.
More, one more. Layers.
What you hear me whispering is layers. The magic of art journaling for me is layers. For instance, I also used texture paste with the yellow. By the way, what you hear me doing in the background is cleaning the stencil in a small container of soapy water that I keep next to me when I'm using this technique. You don't want to leave the texture paste on the stencil to harden. After the texture paste, I experimented a little more with some yellow acrylic paint and water. I love watching the flow of paint within the hills and the valleys left by the texture paste. It wasn't flowing enough for me, so I added more water and utilized the help of a paintbrush to get it moving. I admit I am addicted to this sculptural technique or relief painting. I could totally see this on a wall or even a ceiling. So how cool is it to be able to put it in an art journal and have several pages of experimentation? I love, love, love this technique, which explains why this page is my favorite outcome out of all of them. I didn't use texture paste on all the pages. Most of the pages I used stamping ink and a soft applicator to create subtle tones with the stencil. I didn't want to press too hard because these are still supposed to be background pages. I just wanted to create a little interest. It's a simple process and can be just as effective as the texture paste, and certainly doesn't need as long to dry as the texture paste. Playing with the pigment powders and spraying them with water can also be a fun technique to watch as the pigments mix and slide across the paper. The different pigments in the powders can create firework-like effects as the powder and the water come into contact. I wish I had caught a close-up of that. But this technique saturates the paper and increases the drying time. Now you can use a heat gun or a hairdryer to speed it up, but I didn't. But look, you have to admit that's a cool effect. We've got ourselves a collection of fun backgrounds. There's orange. Yellow is over here because it's still dry. I really like the way the yellow came out. Red, orange, yellow, green. That's neat. The color from this side is saturating through to that side. Green. Blue. Well, we're not too hot on this page, but it's a background, so it's okay. Blue. We like that one. And then the purple. Well, we really did enjoy that side, but this, you gotta remember that the magicals bleed through. That's okay. That's okay. And don't forget these. I know they seem ugly because they're black or gray, but I promise you, these are gonna come out fab. Just gotta trust that it will. I have no idea what it's gonna look like in the end, but I'm gonna make sure it looks good. And if we make it like a cover so that, you know, storm clouds, open it up and you have a rainbow. All right, well, at least that's the plan. They've had a day to dry. I just love that feeling. That three-dimensional texture on there. I don't know, I just love the sound of paper. Yeah, and this is supposedly supposed to be a background, but I love, the lighting's not really set for it, but I love that texture. It's gonna stay in the foreground, I can see it now. All right, so So this first run of what you just saw, well, that first part where I just laid down the colors, it didn't even take a half an hour. It was less than a half an hour. But then as you can see, I love getting lost in the process. So that second time around where I started going in with the texture paste and with more stenciling and laid down more colors was an additional hour. So it was under an hour and a half to come up with 8 pages. These are laying the foundation for an art journal. So what's next, right? I would like to incorporate the ephemera that I got from the make and takes at the expo and incorporate them into the art journal and play. So you can expect to see videos of that coming up. And what was the other thing? Oh, and since I did individual pages here, I want to try a different way of binding them together where the artwork on the layout is actually going to help bind the pages. All right. See you soon, guys. Thanks for watching. Laugh at life. Laugh a lot.